difference between mandatory and coercion. So when they're saying that they're not going to make it mandatory, they are telling us that they're going to make our life hard in every other way. So if our children can't attend school because they're not vaccinated, is that when we're going to start standing up? Or when we can't go out to dinner with our family, or big, large gatherings, barbecues with our loved ones, are we going to not be able to do that either? Are our children going to suffer in the future if we don't do something now? We deserve facts from both sides to make an informed decision. Once you get this vaccine, there's no going back. You need to know all the facts from both sides so that you know what you're getting into, and then it's at your own risk.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to talk, we can. Yeah. Greg?
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot, eh?
Awesome, thank you for coming.
No worries, buddy. You want me to use that, or I can just talk and you can save your batteries? Is that okay?
No, boom it, honey, with your big voice.
Boom it, and then maybe they'll hear something.
All right.
We're already being addressed with some issue, I can see.
Okay, my name's Greg, surname's Jeshnevesky, and I've been active around the scene for a few years, mostly in respect to the trade and investment agreements, but also in terms of intelligence and security matters, anti-terrorism, etc. Just on Thursday, I came to the Parliament to speak to the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Select Committee in respect to the RCEP agreement, which is the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and it was the treaty examination of that, and New Zealand's joining another one of those mega trade and investment agreements. And they were talking about the expected economic benefits that were going to flow from that, but also they wrote in their national interest analysis about how the COVID has impacted trade around the world and also in New Zealand. And so that gave me an opportunity to present to the Select Committee some thoughts in respect to COVID. And I put this paper to them, which I spoke to for a few minutes on Thursday. One of the things I identified very early to the committee was that 80% of people don't get COVID.
Yep.
Like 80% of any population. And I pointed out that some of the cruise ships that got politicised, so the Diamond Princess and the Ruby Princess in particular, 712 people out of 3,711 became infected. 567 out of 2,666 passengers, and 145 out of just over 1,000 crew. 14 people, all of them passengers, died. The average age of passengers was 70. The average, or the crew, was in the range of 35 to 55 years of age. Okay? And the same with the Ruby Princess. Now, people refer to those sorts of cruise ships as floating coffins. Right? But it seems that that is an extremely good evidence-based laboratory to say that most people don't get COVID. Okay? I also pointed out to the Select Committee, hang on, excuse me, that the US knew about COVID, or a Wuhan infectious disease, from the US knew about COVID, or a infectious disease, in Wuhan from November 2019. Okay? So everyone recalls that the US was whinging about how it never got notified about the thing from China and all the rest of it. Well, the US alerted Israel, NATO, right, to the outbreak back in November, and the White House was reportedly not interested in the information, passed it on to NATO and the Israel Defence Forces, and when it reached Israel's health ministry, nothing was done. So did they already know that something was afoot and decided to let it happen?
Yep.
Now, I also asked in my paper, did the US pass on that intelligence to New Zealand? Because we're one of the allies, okay? And really, what I'm asking is, why didn't the US, Israel or NATO act on the report to alert civilian authorities to an impending calamity and forestall a pandemic? And then recall this when we get to hand-wringing as to why the world was not prepared for the pandemic. Okay? So, we've been lied to about the origins of the SARS-CoV virus, initially saying it came from a horseshoe bat and then jumped out of a pangolin at the Wuhan wet food market, right, sometime in October, November, whatever. But only 27 of the original people that got infected with SARS-CoV or COVID in Wuhan, right, early on, only 27 of them were associated with the wet food market. And supposedly the epidemiologically first case wasn't associated with the wet food market at all. But add to that, right, that scientists, when assessing samples from people in northern Italy that were taken back in September, found the virus or antibodies to the virus in people from Italy in September of 2019. So the virus was circulating in different places, but under the radar because it hadn't been, it was circulating lightly, and any infections or things like that would have been viewed as a flu or some other respiratory disease. So the Americans blame Chinese for it, the Chinese are blaming America for it. But it appears that America, through their National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, the department that's run by Dr. Anthony Fauci, was funding another organisation headed by a bloke by the name of Peter Daszak, who then contracted bat coronavirus research, gain of function, that is where they play with the viruses and they add in little proteins to the viruses to make them more, if you like, infectious or more lethal, but somehow enhance them, gain of function, right, to make them a weapon, right? And they argue what they're doing is they're doing these experiments so that they can then create vaccines, right, to fight the things that they're creating in the laboratory. But who's to say what might jump out of nature is going to be the same as the viruses that they're creating in the laboratory. So when the virus jumped out and there was early science papers done on it, a bunch of Indian researchers, right, did a paper at the end of January 2020 which said that when they studied the S-spike protein, so that's one of the little things that sticks out of the virus and attaches to our human lung tissue, right, they found that there were 4 unique inserts into that S-spike protein which suggests that it came out of a HIV virus. And they said it was unlikely fortuitous in nature, like unlikely to come out of nature. So I've put a lot more in the paper that I gave to the Select Committee, and I've put that on my Facebook page so people can get hold of it and read it if they want to look at the whole thing. And I don't want to keep telling people stuff that they already know, but it seems to me that there was a lot of people in expert and authoritative positions that knew this thing was coming and then closed down any discussion about it being a potential bioweapon or a escapade from a laboratory. And one of the epidemiologists that everyone would be aware of is a guy by the name of Professor Michael Baker from Otago Medical Health School. Now he has been producing papers with others which point to the fact that it's highly likely that there would be bioweapon escapees or deliberate releases from laboratories, and has written a number of papers which are publicly available, including one in April of 2020. And in that paper, he references a planning board called the Global Preparedness Management Board, and it did a report in September 2019 which called for 2 simulation exercises to be run, including one which was for the purposes of examining what would occur with a deliberately released pathogen. Right? Okay, so we know that on October the 8th, 17th, 18th in New York, Event 201 was run, where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and also the John Hopkins Centre for Health Security, right, jointly sponsored Event 201, which was an exercise about a bat coronavirus that jumped into pigs in Brazil and then came out and infected humans. There was an outbreak from Brazil. This was part of their planning exercise. And it took a couple of years, 65 million people dead before they found a vaccine to save the day. Okay? So that, there was foreknowledge about potential releases of viruses into the population, and lots of it. There was a call for a simulation exercise from this particular Global Preparedness Management Board in their report, September 2019, A World at Risk. We know that one event was run, and no one, including Helen Clark from the independent panel that's looking at pandemic preparedness, no one is saying what happened with the second exercise. It would appear to me that the second exercise went live, right? And we're living, the world is living that experience through the COVID pandemic. And it seems to me the whole world is being scammed, right, to create a new business opportunity and new methods of control of the population, right, through health security. So anything that gets the word security stuck on it, right, is about looking at things in a military framework. And it's now the war on human germ bags. And the other part to all this thing is that right from the early stages, clinicians around the world, faced with the problem of their people sick and dying of COVID, then raided the medical cabinet and came up with all the different drugs that have been used to treat AIDS, to treat the earlier SARS-CoV-1, to treat MERS and various other infectious pathogens. And they discovered that you could use things like hydroxychloroquine in conjunction with zinc, in conjunction with azithromycin and other antibiotics. And the world learned that you can use ivermectin, which is an anti-parasite drug, in conjunction with zinc and other antibiotics, and actually cure COVID, or if you use it prophylactically, that is as a preventative in low doses, actually stop people from getting it. So out of the existing medical cabinet of generic drugs that have been around for 50 or more years, which are proven safe in treating malaria and other infections or parasitic, so they're okay and benign in the human body, they don't cause too many adverse reactions. We've got a suite of things that are existing and can be used, but they were politicised by the health authorities. the health authorities killed people by politicising cures and making it difficult for medical practitioners to use things that they would ordinarily use. Like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine were banned in Australia for treating COVID. And when we think about ordinary and regular medical practice involves treating sick people, not healthy people. It's only people, right, that have symptoms of the disease and it starts to get really serious that need treatment. So Dr. Zelenko in New York, who people may know of, he early came to the fact that hydroxychloroquine, zinc and azithromycin works, and he came up, put it together and called it the Zelenko protocol, and he's treated thousands of people in his practice, and of the thousands he only gave the protocol to about 800 people that he deemed needed help in fighting off the disease. Right? Of all of the people that he treated, only 2 died of COVID. Now when Trump talked about hydroxychloroquine, Fauci poured scorn and cold water on it, right? Because it appears that Fauci already knows what the game plan is, and that's about the vaccine. And so here in New Zealand, we have the leader here saying that 2021 is the year of the vaccine. And we know that the contents of the vaccine are very controversial because we've already seen that there are thousands and thousands of adverse reactions to both the Moderna and the Pfizer mRNA vaccines, including over 1,000 people as of about a week ago that have died within 28 days of receiving the vaccine on the VAERS, the CDC VAERS adverse reaction site. So in New Zealand, it was all about, initially about flattening the curve, and then it was about elimination, and it was about not allowing anyone to die. Right? But we're more than happy to vaccinate the world, even though we know that there's going to be heaps of adverse reactions and deaths as a result of that. And also, as we know, that over 80% of any population doesn't get it. So we're going to produce vaccines for 8 billion people across the planet, 2 doses, whatever, and if the vaccine